Creating records in Shape is really easy, and we have several ways to do it. This video is going to do an overview of how to create leads in the system from various methods. Let's start with the easiest. In the upper navigation bar, there's a big plus button. Here's where you can add various contacts manually. You can choose which lead type you want to add. I'm just going to go ahead and add a lead, which opens up the record details, and it's going to highlight the required fields. It's important to note that there's a settings page to control these required fields. The required fields only apply to manually created leads. You can either pare them back or you can add more. One other thing that I will note is you can also require certain fields on certain status changes. So if there's certain data points that are important at key stages, you can do that in the Manage Statuses settings page. I'm going to go ahead and add just a basic lead into the system. Once you fill out all required fields, you'll notice that you'll get a green notification in the upper right-hand corner. When that happens, it's going to default to the default status, which is the new lead status in most systems. You can rename that as well and manage statuses if you'd like. It's also going to automatically assign to the individual who created that record in their appropriate department. But you can also adjust assignment details in this dropdown. Now, that is manually creating a lead. In addition to manually creating a lead, you can also utilize webhooks, so HTTP posts or API calls. You can also use integrations, for example, Zapier, and you can import large spreadsheets as well. We're going to be going over each. Let's start with an API call. An API call or an HTTP post is very common with lead providers, with website forms, or really anything that can support a basic webhook. I have Postman up, which is an example here. To get to the posting instructions, it's very easy. If you go to Settings and you go to Sales and Marketing and Marketing Sources, this is where you can not only create new leads or lead sources, but it's also where you can find the mapping details as well. For example, if I wanted to add a new lead source, I'm just going to call it new lead source. You can choose where you want it to post to. Most commonly, it's going to be leads. And you can press Save and Continue. From here, it's going to automatically give you a posting URL. From here, you can take this, put it in, again, we do require it to be a post method. You can put this in here. And with our HTTP post method, we support both form and JSON. In this example, I will be doing a form post. Just as a heads up, if you are using JSON, you do need to put the contact type is JSON in the headers. To ensure that you're able to map the data into the system, you can find that here by expanding this section, and on the left-hand side has all of our field mappings. Again, the required fields, there are no required fields when it comes to the HTTP post. We do have some required fields when you're using our OpenAPI. So just to give some examples here, we're going to go first name, last name, email, and phone. We're just going to do a really basic lead post here, and we're going to put in some static values. Just as a reminder, this URL in and of itself is going to automatically stamp the lead as a new lead source. Testing, posting URL at do. So here we're just putting in some test values, and when you press send, this is going to give you the response code here. You can see here that this was a success message. It gives you back the lead ID and some key details as well. Now, from there, you can go into the system. Should just show up in your LO pipeline. And if you can't find it in the, oh, there it is, testing post URL, and the new lead source, when you open it up, you can see the first name, last name, mobile phone, and email in the new lead source that we entered into Postman. Now, if you don't know how to use Postman, or this is outside of your wheelhouse, you can also do things through Zapier. Zapier is a great tool if you are not a developer, but you still want to connect other tools to Shape. This particular example is going to use a Facebook lead ad, and we're going to post it into the system. So in this case, Facebook lead ad. We have a Shape app. Webhooks by Zapier gives you a lot more field mappings. So we're going to use the Webhooks by Zapier option here. Just like in Postman, you're going to do a post. It defaults to form. And from here, and it usually doesn't have any mappings here, it usually has just a blank mapping. This is where you can go to enter the URL and field mappings as well, which is very easy. What we're going to do is we're going to go into settings. We're going to go into marketing sources, and I should have some sort of Facebook or social media option in here already. So let's look up at social media. So I would likely recommend adding a Facebook lead ad source name specifically, or even drilling down to the specific lead ad you're doing. But for demonstration purposes, we're going to have this lead come in under the social media source. Going back into Zapier, we're going to put that URL here. Again, we do form or JSON. Form is easiest because you don't have to add any headers. And here, this is where you map the data. So I'm going to press this plus button to pull data from the Facebook lead ad, email, full name, oops, I'm going to do created time, and lead ID. You can keep going with this. As a recommendation, if you're populating information from any lead sources, we highly recommend putting in data, which is going to fill the marketing compliance tab. Entry ID, IP address, source URL, consent certificate, opt-in language, etc. is really important for compliance reasons, and it's just very impactful for tracking and audit purposes. Marketing data also has all UTM values as well. This is very key when posting leads from your website, for example. Again, this is not required, just a recommendation. And we have field mappings for all of these. Going back into marketing, or into that marketing source area, you can expand just to show you how you can look those things up. If I wanted to post into a UTM, you can use this search value here, and you'll see all of the field names that you need. We're going to do the same thing here. So we're going to take lead name full. That's the full name of the lead. Shape automatically splits them into first and last name using that mapping. There are certain timestamps that you cannot override, but created time, date and time is not one of them. You can override that. So we're going to go back into lead sources and look at created date. We're going to put that in. We're going to do the email. And we're going to do a reference ID. When you post a lead into Shape, it will automatically create a lead ID. So one thing to note is you cannot override our lead ID, so we do recommend using a reference ID or alternate ID, which we have several field mappings for. From here, when you press continue, you can test this step This will actually initiate that webhook to create the lead. You can see here we have the lead ID. Again, going back to the lead list, I'm going to refresh the page so we can see that populate in. Another thing that you can do is, and you can see here, here's that test lead, dummy data. This is what was populated in from social media. Now, the last way to populate leads into the system that we're going to be covering on this video is to do a bulk import. I have a Google Sheet up over here for a sample import with 3 records in it, and we're going to go through how we can import this into the system. Oftentimes, the key in importing spreadsheet data is ensuring that your spreadsheet data is clean and accurate, and you have a clear idea of the first header row. You can see my sample import has very simple pieces of data. I'm going to be adding a few pieces to help improve this import overall. So you can see here I have first name, last name, mobile phone, email, and created date. As a reminder, created date is something that we can override, and you'll notice that my mobile phone value does have some different formatting. As a heads up, Shape will strip out the mobile phone field mapping as long as it's standard formatting, whether it's a dash, a space, or parentheses. If you have @ symbols in here, for example, or invalid phone number characters, that could result in some weird data showing up in your system. So make sure that you definitely analyze your spreadsheet prior to importing it within the system. Now, a few things that you'll notice here are there is some key data that's missing from the spreadsheet that are usually pretty important. This has some key contact information, but usually it's important to also track the source of the lead. So something that you can do is you can add columns to your data in order to ensure that it comes in and it's easily managed and organized within the system. So I would highly recommend, if this was a similar spreadsheet to yours, adding a source field. Going back into sources, you have your whole list here. I'm going to go ahead and use live chat as an example. I'm just going to copy paste it as exactly as it appears in the system. If you do have different sources in here, they will automatically add to your source list via the import. Now, that is important to note because if you're trying to have a clean list of sources, I do highly recommend you clean this column up prior to import. Next, if these leads are all supposed to be assigned to the same person or they need to go through distribution, you don't have to have a user column in here. However, if you do want to make sure that they're all assigned to a particular user in a particular department, you can also add a column for that. Or you can also round robin it as well. I'm going to show you how you can do that. Going back into the system, if you click on settings, this is going to take you to your manage users area. If I wanted to assign all of my leads to Chloe Larson in the loan officer department, it's very easy to do so. For this example, I'm going to round robin them between Greg, Chloe, and Scott. They're all in the loan officer department, and we're going to find their user IDs over here. So, in order to ensure that they're assigned properly via the file, we're going to say loan officer user. From here, if I wanted sample lead to go to Chloe, we're going to use Chloe's ID number, 46. For another sample, if I wanted that to go to Greg, we're going to use Greg's ID, 49. And if I wanted last example to go to Scott, we are going to use 43. That's how you can assign leads to specific individuals within the spreadsheet. Keep in mind you do not have to do this. We do have a step in the import where it'll assign it to a particular person in a particular department, but it all assigns to the same individual. Lastly, if these all need to go into a specific source status, you can do that through the import itself, or you can put them in certain statuses. For example, if I go to manage statuses here, and each one of these leads belong in different statuses. For example, one is a new lead, one is attempting contact, and one is contacted follow-up. I can make sure that they're inserted in here appropriately, exactly matching the statuses, and I can put that in. These are 3 of the most common added columns that we do recommend adding to your spreadsheet if they don't already exist, and this is how you can do it if there's multiple options in there. One other recommendation is if you want to segment your leads even further, you can also add a tags area. We do have a tags settings page, and this just allows you to drill down to even deeper segments or specific segments. For example, if these were all VIP opportunities, you can put VIP, and if I wanted them all to be the same, I can copy paste that down that row, or those rows. If you needed them to be multiple, you can comma separate them as follows. This is a very straightforward spreadsheet. I'm going to go ahead and just delete any empty rows. Typically, Shape will ignore them. However, best practices is just to keep your spreadsheet as clean as possible. When you're ready to import, you file, download to CSV. You can also do the same thing in Excel. Now, to actually import that list, you just go into Settings, and you have an Import area. From here, this is where you can choose where to import the data. All of these are leads, so I'm going to keep it as is. I'm going to go ahead and drop this here into that area. What it does next is it's going to take you to a mapping area. One thing that you can do, especially if you're purchasing lists of leads often, you can save your mappings as a template to autofill them next time. And from here, you just map the data. First name clearly goes to first name, last name, mobile phone, email, etc. We're going to keep going here. Once you've double checked that your selections match your header row column, you're going to press the next button. And this is the data handling step and final confirmation. As a reminder, I went ahead and already set the various assigned users in my spreadsheet file, so I'm going to leave this blank. Similarly, I already set the statuses, so I'm also going to leave this blank. But just as a heads up, if you do have the same, if all of the records need to go to a specific user in a specific status, you can also do that in this step here, and you don't have to do it in the spreadsheet. You also have a couple options. You can run duplicate management. You can also initiate drip campaigns and execute triggers when you import the data. Most common are going to be merge duplicates and initiating drip campaigns. However, for this sample import, I am not going to do that. So I'm going to keep this all blank, and I'm going to press I've verified start import. When this happens, it's going to take you to the import page. I'm going to clear the filters since I did have some filters on the view, and it's already in progress. Because there's only 3 total records, the import process is actually already complete. As you can see here, now what we're going to do is I'm going to go into leads and I'm going to go into my database view. This will have, well actually because I set the created date, they might not show up at the top of my list. However, They are in terms of last activity. So you can see my sample lead, another sample, last example. They all came into the live chat source in the statuses that I wanted. And when I open them up, I'm just going to double check the assignment. You can see this one is Scott. We can see that this one's Greg. And this last one here is Chloe. If you have any questions on the various ways to create a lead within the system, please let us know.